We're gonna spend the rest of the morning getting a bill introduction and walkthrough for H 739, which is an act relating to prohibiting the use and sale of the herbicide paraquat. And with us is the Representative Cole, who's the bill sponsor, one of the bill sponsor. And then Ledge Counsel Bradley Shulman will pull the bill up in a few minutes and show us what we've got in language. And it is a short form bill, so there isn't a whole lot there to look at. So I think we have plenty of time really to hear in the sponsor's own words what this bill is about. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Representative Cole.
Hey, thank you. Good morning. I guess we're still in morning. For the record, my name is Esme Cole, a representative from Hartford and member emeritus of this committee, which I miss great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on H 739, a bill which would ban the use and sale of paraquat in Vermont. So what is it? It's not a pear, it's not a kumquat, it's not a hybrid of the two. But paraquat is one of the most acutely toxic herbicides still in use in American agriculture. The EPA describes it as a synthetic, non-selective contact herbicide. So it kills everything it touches, in other words. Paraquat is useful because it is a desiccant, so a drying agent. It creates free radicals and oxidative stress in plant tissue, which causes rapid drying and destruction. It has a half-life in soil ranging from 16 months to over 6 years, but can also be transported through dust and residue on crops that people consume. It is primarily used on corn, grain, grapes, apples, strawberries, soy, and other beans. So what's the harm? Unfortunately, its effect on human health is similarly destructive to that of plants. It targets mitochondria, which can cause a range of harms, including oxidative stress and apoptosis or cell death. And importantly, can lead to neuronal degeneration. When people consume paraquat-treated food, the chemical can bind to a naturally occurring protein in food called lectin. This I found very interesting with my biology brain. So lectin is especially prevalent in corn, but it is in many different produce and legumes. But lectin provides a vehicle for the chemical to move through the gastrointestinal system to the vagus nerve to reach the brain. It specifically targets the region of the brain affecting motor function, among others, and this is the mechanism behind its connection with Parkinson's disease. So decades of research indicate that people who live or work near fields where paraquat has been sprayed are 2.5 times more likely to develop Parkinson's disease. Paraquat is also connected to other health risks, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which are blood cancers that affect lymphocytes, kidney cancer, thyroid cancer, and other thyroid issues. These risks are borne disproportionately by farm workers, pesticide applicators, and rural families who live and work closest to its use. New evidence in 2025 found that paraquat could travel further than was previously understood, potentially exposing more people. In the EPA's own words, paraquat has life-threatening effects on the gastrointestinal tract, kidney, liver, heart, and other organs. Despite this, a federal ban has not been implemented. So moving along to policy history. So more than 70 countries have banned the use of paraquat, including major agricultural producers like China, Brazil, and the EU, and Turkey. It is important to note that countries behind paraquat synthesis and production do not allow the herbicide to be used on their own land, including China, Switzerland, and the UK. Data have consistently failed to show any negative impact of banning paraquat on agricultural productivity. In terms of profitability, our allowance for paraquat is actually hurting us. Several major destinations for our farm products have set very low maximum residue limits, including Thailand, South Korea, Brazil, the UK, and India. Banning paraquat would make it easier for our farmers to export to these markets. Paraquat has been a restricted use pesticide in the United States for decades, limiting it to certified applicators. The EPA significantly strengthened these restrictions in 2016, 2019, and 2021. This trend would appear to be moving slowly toward outright restriction based on the EPA review process. But looking ahead, it is important to consider that in 2025, the Trump administration cut nearly a quarter of EPA research positions. Therefore, while we would have expected this review process to be slow already, we may need to remove our expectations for progress altogether for the time being. The burden of protecting public health for farmers, rural communities, and consumers is now more heavily on our shoulders. States do have the power to intervene. Missouri, Virginia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania legislatures have stepped up to introduce similar efforts to ban paraquat. The question before us is, do the benefits of continuing with the status quo justify the extraordinary human cost? Thank you again for your time and partnership on this important issue, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Great, thank you. Let's take some questions. Go ahead, Richard.
So paraquat is seeing limited use in the state of Vermont in the last 10 years or so. Matter of fact, when I called up my suppliers, I'm a licensed applicator. When I called up my suppliers, or sent them messages to talk to about late at night, I just sent them paraquat question mark.
Yeah.
And the answer was, don't be dumb, use Roundup. Glyphosate. So it sees very limited use in the state of Vermont. Last year, I think about 107 gallons were sold in the whole state. And a lot of it's used by clearing, where they use it to clear right of ways. So if we were to ban this, how do you propose we economically keep right of ways clear?
So yeah, thank you for some of the context on the Vermont piece, because I didn't speak to that in this testimony. It's good to hear you got more recent data, because I was only able to acquire 2022 and below that last in 2022. Like, what was it?
I pulled strings.
Oh, right. That's what we need, right? But yeah, in 2022, the last number I saw was 750 pounds in Addison County for corn forage. But inside scoop on very specific uses for clearing ways is important. I guess what I would say to that is that rather than me providing a direct answer, I think, there's tons of precedent. We are an outlier here. Other countries have been quite successful without this chemical. So I think, if there are other ways to create that clearing, which there are, I think the benefits versus the costs of using this specific chemical, we'd really want to consider that.
Representative Bosland.
Yeah, my question was a little bit more, I guess, somewhat along the lines of Representative Nelson's. But I was wondering what are the items that we actually use it on? I mean, you mentioned corn, he mentioned right of ways. Yeah. So like in terms of countries that would ban the import of the products, are we talking about big products that we grow in Vermont or not as big of products? I mean, I don't think we're considered a big corn export state.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look into more data, but I just, right now we don't have the opportunity basically because, this residue exists in higher quantities than any other nation. So I don't know what opportunities could open up if that weren't a factor. But I'd be very interested in to see where profitability could come into play there. Because right now it's not really a consideration because we can't.
But do you know what type of products we use it on? I mean, is it edible agricultural products or?
Yes, and non-edible. So even like lawn in Vermont, historically it's been used. And it had been used in golf courses prior to 2021, I believe. And might want to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the accurate date. So it's not just food, but, corn and grains and fruit, especially like apples. I see a lot of research on that, and grapes.
Representative Nelson.
Yeah, but you can't spray it on corn because you'll kill the corn. You can't spray it on strawberries because you'll kill the strawberries. I mean, it kills everything that it's sprayed on. Essentially, the way I understand it, it's
Thank you, Reverend. So yeah, that's my understanding as well. So it wouldn't be a direct application on the product that you're intending to grow, but rather, everything in proximity.
They don't use it to dry down potatoes.
Of course.
No, it's banned for that.
Yeah.
It is highly regulated. Matter of fact, you have to take a 3-hour online course before you can use it.
So, I think the argument with, no matter what you do, as many regulations as, even if you're completely protecting yourself as an individual and also, combined with very precise application, the harms based on, a couple of decades of research, if not more, point to like, no matter how careful you are, the harms are incredible, to human health. So, but of course, we're not directly applying it to, the food product itself, like you pointed out, which is helpful for understanding.
Go ahead, Representative O'Brien.
I just wondered, it was saying that it's often used when Roundup is not effective. So do you know, is Roundup not effective in some certain cases?
Are we asking
Well, right, whoever.
That'll be for committee discussion.
I think the farmers would be the most equipped to speak on that, but I will say the biggest, the one where I've seen Roundup and paraquat placed in similar literature side by side, mostly has to do with litigation. And unfortunately, the millions and millions that are being settled in lawsuits because of the proven harm, the science is there too, but it's just, clearly they are feeling the need to settle because there's a lot of ground for these lawsuits based in fact.
Like I wondered, right, that whoever limited use it is in Vermont, was that used because the custom applicators were like, oh, Roundup, like to say, is not working on whatever, on Japanese knotweed or a covered crop, and so we'll try paraquat. I didn't know if that was used as an alternative or they just went straight to paraquat because they.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think, our farmers are the most informed here and are making very strategic decisions, but, we have to take into account the whole picture, right? So, obviously we want to be effective in our productivity and reducing growth of things that we don't want there. But yeah, in that cost benefit analysis, like whether it's glyphosate, whether it's paraquat, whether it's whatever, all should be taken into.
Also like, since you were in here during the ENIC debates, that it's getting into pollinators or, the sort of macro invertebrates.
Excellent question. I think I would point to experts. So, but I do know that, just like with neonics, like dust is a factor, and that it's traveling in particulate matter like that.
Water, right?
As well. Oh my gosh, yes. And topic I wasn't sure whether to approach today was also one of the major substitutes in addition to glyphosate is diclot, which is slightly less harmful, but it's used in usually more aquatic settings, like Connecticut uses quite a bit. And I don't know, it's just something I think maybe the committee could be along the same thread, be interested in looking into how we regulate that, because there are less regulations for diclot than there are paraquat, and that's considered a substitute. So.
Representative Nelson.
I won't, I'll share this. I am philosophically opposed to banning things in this state that are allowed in other state because it could affect our ability of being competitive in commerce. I don't know of any business, our ag chemical businesses that sell paraquat right now. They've all cleared it off their shelves. And they're not actively looking to sell it. They're not recommending it. I would prefer more the approach of reaching out to the companies that sell it and asking them to remove us from their list of states that they would sell to. as opposed to an outright ban, and I've been working trying to get that ball rolling. Syngenta being the big one, it's just saying, hey, you know, we do this the easy way or the hard way. And then if something were to happen down the road and we had an outbreak of, you know, I didn't realize paraquat worked as good as it did, because when I had to control some Japanese knotweed, I'd have used that, but maybe not. But anyway, you know, there could be an invasive species threat that is really harmful, and maybe that would be the best tool to use in, you know, a really restricted manner. But I appreciate, you know, I was numb to the effects of paraquat until we had that conversation, and I've looked into it since then.
Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot. And I, know you care deeply about, this issue and the health of.
Well, we all
Music.
care, we all care about the health of our families, because our families play where we work. And we all care about the environment, and we just got to figure out the best way and not set precedents.
Well-
I mean, if you'll give me back neonics,
You got it.
I will jump the ban paraquat hard.
Unfortunately, I already lost that battle.
Oh, all I gotta do is get another 25 people in the house to agree to give me back neonics, and I'll push hard. I'll be the loudest voice down there to ban
Yeah.
paraquat.
Well, I also, before we move into other subjects too quickly, I do want to, acknowledge some of the points that you made earlier, especially, I do completely understand the fear of being the first to do anything. It makes a whole lot of sense. Although, in the back of my mind, maybe it's aspirational, but, to my point about opening new markets for us as, through exports, I could see it as providing the exact opposite opportunity, in terms of profitability. And, others, we're not alone in this fight. So, and it's the research points, this is the only thing holding us up from, if the concern is public health, human health, then this would have been banned forever ago. So, which it was elsewhere, but we're just trying to catch up.
Let's take a couple more questions, and then maybe we'll ask Ledge Council to show us the language. Go ahead, Representative Lipsky.
Rep. Cole, thank you for your compelling introduction to the bill.
Thank you.
Very disturbing.
Oh, no. I like to disturb. That's.
So my main question is going to have to do more with lifespans, but being an aviator, I know that 100 octane gas weighs about 7 pounds per gallon.
Mhm.
You allowed that 700 some pounds, which would have been similar to what Richard said about 107 gallons, but that was only in Addison County.
Yes.
Whereas Richard implied that that's what was purchased or used statewide. So there's a vast discrepancy of area. But that's something that just from a factual, I think it's important to know. But, when we were licensing Vermont Yankee 50 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say I was at the table there. Radioactive isotopes lifespans were at the meat of the challenge for that technology at that time. But so the lifespan within the environment, whether it's in the soil or water or air for paraquat, I think would be important for us in the public to understand how the length of the toxicity. And the last question, when you referred to right-of-ways, are you talking about electric transmission line clearing for application? So what do you mean by right-of-ways? Because, if it's cost effective, doesn't mean it's the best thing. There are people with weed whackers or chainsaws that can, with less deleterious to our environment, that can do right away clearing. Been doing it for a long time. So the clarification of right of ways and lifespans actually
Sure.
would be helpful.
Yeah, and the clarification too on use in the state of Vermont too. So maybe Rep. Nelson and I can tag team getting that, or the committee can tag team with the Agency of Ag to have those numbers right in front of you, so that it's easy to see. I think also Rep. Nelson would have better information about the right-of-way piece and what the context of what he was describing there.
The science of lifespan.
Just real quick, Jed. A paraquat weighs half a pound per pint. And the figure I gave 107 gallons was from 2024. That's the most recent data.
A couple of different years.
Yeah, so it's a couple different years, but it is a dense, heavy product. It's, a gallon of water is 8 pounds. And, so they're applying the legal rate of application is half a pound up to 1.5 pounds, 1 to 3 pints per acre.
And while we're on the topic of measurements in pounds and metrics, so one of the headliner comments about paraquat is that a teaspoon will kill you. So consuming a teaspoon,
Less.
less probably. So it's like when we're talking about 750 pounds, I think that's an interesting way to visualize and compare how toxic this thing really is. I also didn't want to forget to respond to your comment too about like negotiations with Syngenta, or I'm sorry, how do you say that? Syngenta, yes. Which, they put a lot of money into this and I don't think it's in their interest to take it off.
Oh, it might be.
Yeah, I mean, they've, true. So, I mean, no matter how we get there, I'm concerned that the weight of that kind of negotiation, if that were to be successful, it would be too late. I mean, it's already too late because I think hopefully you'll get the chance to hear from folks who have been directly impacted, of which there are thousands, unfortunately, both farmers and people affected nearby, especially those living with Parkinson's today. And it sounds like they do want to share their support, the folks I've been in contact with different groups around the country. So urgency and timeliness is definitely important here because this is pretty serious stuff. But I'm so glad that we don't use it prolifically in Vermont, but we do have some use here.
One more question, I think, Representative Bosman. Yeah, you've been waiting.
Yeah, it's more of a comment actually. So, but just, I think that this bill is important to consider. I mean, I have a different perspective than Representative Nelson on this. I mean, it may be that banning something is going to take a tool out of the box. But I think if we look at the world, there's a lot of regions of the world that have already decided this is really dangerous. And our job as representatives in serving in this body is to protect human health and the environment. And in Vermont.
And farmers.
And
who are human.
Right. And so all of those things, I think we have to think about, like, is that the only way we can solve that problem? And is solving the problem in that way worth the cost? And I say, as a person whose father-in-law died of Parkinson's, it's not a pretty way to go. And he actually, I have no idea if he used this particular chemical, but he applied a lot of chemicals for about 40 years in his garden as a home gardener, and probably not that wisely. But if we can avoid people having these kind of outcomes by taking this out of the range of possibilities, it feels to me like we might be doing a service. And then we can figure out other ways to clear our right of ways or get the whatever we don't want around our corn to be there. So I hope we will take more testimony on this because I do think it's important.
Representative Cole, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming in this morning. And if you want to stay, of course you can. And Bradley, if you want to come up and just show us the language, let's do that now. And this This, again, it's H 739. It's a short form bill as introduced. It's on our webpage. Gonna have Bradley pull it up.
Okay, Brad, so I am Bradley Showman, Office of Legislative Counsel, and I will pull up this bill. This is a short form bill. This is H 739. And so this bill would prohibit the use and sale of the herbicide paraquat in the state. It defines the kinds of chemicals that would be known as paraquat, and it would authorize limited exceptions to the prohibition on the use of paraquat only when no other less harmful pesticide would be effective in addressing the environmental or agricultural emergency. And then exemption orders would be valid up to 1 year and would specify that the paraquat to be used, the permitted uses of the paraquat, the order and date and duration of the use, and the order's geographic scope. So essentially, this bill proposes to ban paraquat in a similar way to that the state bans neonicotinoid pesticides, authorizing exceptions in emergency situations, but that's it. Just to speak briefly, the regulatory framework we went over earlier today, this is a restricted use pesticide. As Representative Cole pointed out, it is a very restricted use pesticide, which had some attention from the EPA several times in recent memory to add more safety requirements because of how harmful this could be to human health in very small doses. So on the EPA's website, you might run across language saying 1 sip can kill. And so it's toxic for human consumption. And so that's why I say it's a very restricted pesticide because it does receive a lot of attention from the EPA in terms of regulating its safe usage. And to clarify a question I heard earlier about the usage in the state of Vermont, in 2022, that was 750 pounds in Addison County only, according to the Agency of Agriculture's website. And so they post how many pounds per county of any pesticide are being used. And paraquat, I was only had the chance to look at the last few years, but in the year prior to that, there was no paraquat used. And the year prior to that, there was 36 pounds in either Windsor or Windham County. So it's not very it's not a highly used product in our state. But that's the end of this bill. It's a short form bill. There is a companion, not a companion bill, but there is a bill in the Senate that would a standard form bill in the Senate that would ban the use of paraquat. Mike actually drafted that. It was before my time with Legislative Counsel, but that is in with the Senate.
Senate Ag.
Let me pull it up. Actually, I had it up.
And I'm seeing nods from around the room.
Okay. Yeah, and I closed the window that would give me the information. So.
Okay, well, it was helpful, I think, having the conversation this morning about the other bill to refresh our memories on Class A and B. And so this is Class A.
This is Class A.
This is something that you can't go, I can't go buy it myself. And if I were licensed to apply it, I could only buy it in some restricted.
Yes, and for the new people who might be watching, a Class A or restricted use pesticide is a term of art. So that means that has a specific legal language and specific legal impact. When you use that term to describe a pesticide, it means that regulatory agencies are required to very closely regulate how a pesticide is used. And given pesticides might have different types of uses depending on their toxicity and known risks to people and the environment and things of that sort. So one of the examples with paraquat is there's a closed system to move it from one container to another and to prevent people from, putting it into like a bottle of soda so that they could, administer it somewhere else. So regulations when an administrative agency is making rules or regulations on how to use a pesticide, they can make things as specific as that to a given pesticide based on its toxicity and known harmfulness.
I know there's not much here, but any questions about the language? And I'll just say that if we decide to take, any further testimony into the bill, if we will, I think one of the first things we'll want to do is dig in more to the, how is it being used in Vermont? What other data do we have in Vermont about? I don't know whether there is data specific to Vermont about illness and disease, but any of that we shouldn't be asking Ledge Council about. But go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Chair Duffy. This is clarify my vocabulary. We're using the term pesticide, not herbicide. So I'm curious what the target is, because whatever it touches, whatever plants it touches seem to experience mortality.
And that is me using the word pesticide is a function of having been in earlier today. This is an herbicide. And economic poison is the general term that we use to describe pesticides, herbicides, rodenticides, things of that sort. The economic poison is the general term. Herbicide would be a paraquat.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
As far as I know, being a licensed and certified pesticide applicator. Pesticide would be under the term pesticide, you have herbicide. Fungicide and insecticide, term, it's like economic
General.
poison.
And actually,
One I've never heard of until I came into this building.
I learned it from that guy right there.
we have, the language here says pesticide, so it's,
Yeah.
it seems to be a blank or sort of umbrella.
It is. And when we're talking about different kinds of pesticides and things of that sort, I try to be more specific with my language to not create the confusion. But there are it's like economic poisons, pesticide, herbicides, and but this is mostly used for plants. And I mean, this is used for plants and to desiccate crops like cotton prior to harvesting and things of that sort. So, thank you.
All right, yeah, then I think we can stop. Did you have another question, John?
Is that?
I can ask them offline.
Okay, all right, well, let's stop. We'll take a break for lunch. We'll be back at 1. And then there's a couple of things on our agenda this afternoon, including another bill. We've got the American Farmland Trust coming in. We had heard last week that they would be helpful with understanding loss of farmland. And I think the food, somebody who we had hoped to hear from last week about the food bank who's participating in Vermonters Feeding Vermonters is back today. We weren't able to see them last time, so they'll be on at 1. Thank you.
Richard, how many